This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor.
As a hunter and outdoor enthusiast, you need food that's not just convenient, but also nutritious. That's why I trust ReadyWise Outdoor. Their pro meals are designed to fuel your adventure, packed with over 30 grams of protein and more than 500 calories per serving, keeping you energized when you need it the most. Favorites like the Thai coconut cashew curry or the protein-packed breakfast skillet are not only delicious, but ready in minutes. Just add water. Plus, their freeze-dried technology keeps these meals lightweight, which are perfect for extended trips. Whether you're deep in the backcountry or preparing for a weekend camping trip, ReadyWise has your back, with meals that give you the stamina you need to go the extra mile. Their meals are made locally here in the U.S. and come with a 15-year shelf life. So head on over to ReadyWiseOutdoor.com today and explore their pro meal bundles, because your outdoor pursuits deserve great-tasting, high-quality meals. And be sure to enter promo code Ryan20 to save 20% off at checkout. That's Ryan20 to save 20% off at ReadyWiseOutdoor.com.
Need a cooler that keeps your food and drinks ice cold on your next adventure? Look no further than Blue Coolers from Caddis Sports. With the industry-leading insulation and rugged durability, these coolers are perfect for camping trips, tailgates, and all of your outdoor adventures. The built-in wheels make transportation a breeze, no matter how heavy the load. Whether you're fishing, hosting a barbecue, or at deer camp, Blue Coolers has you covered with unmatched performance at an affordable price. Blue Coolers are made right here in the USA, so get yours today at caddissports.com. Be sure to use promo code Ryan10 to save 10% off at checkout. That's Ryan10 to save 10% off at caddissports.com.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. We've got Johnathan McCormick joining us here, also known as Redbeard Outdoors on social. Johnathan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate you. I always love being on this side of the microphone and not having to ask the questions sometimes.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and good news is I've got some questions for you. So, as we talked a little bit about just before we started recording here, I want to dig into a little bit about your transition into becoming a hunter, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you got started in hunting about a decade ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, something like that. It was like 7-8 years ago, officially. I mean, so born and raised in North Carolina. My great-grandfather bought me a hunting and fishing lifetime license in North Carolina. He was a big outdoorsman. They always hunted deer, ducks, fished, everything that they could, back when it actually mattered, because they were kind of out in I wouldn't say the sticks, but they were definitely not in the city in North Carolina. So they farmed, they hunted, they subsisted off the land. And I never really... I'm trying to remember if I even knew him at all, if I was, one when he died or something. But anyway, I don't remember him. But he had the foresight to buy me that license. And so I grew up fishing and never really got into hunting a lot because my dad wasn't big into hunting. And then the one time that I did go when I was like 16 was kind of I don't know, it was like sitting in a box blind with this guy that my mom was dating at the time, because my parents had divorced by then. And it just, nothing weird happened. It's just like, it wasn't fun sitting over 3 shooting lanes waiting for deer to come in with a rifle. I'm like, yeah, this 50-yard shot with a rifle. Again, no offense to people that are up for that. That's awesome. For me, that was not my style. And so I didn't get into into hunting until I came out to Utah, served an LDS mission, and then got married. And then someone in our neighborhood, long story short, I got invited to go hunting with him, and I fell in love with it.
And what type of hunt was it that you went on with him?
Yeah, so that started with I was helping him move. People that don't know about Utah, there's a lot of Mormons out here, and I am LDS. I don't consider myself a Utah Mormon. Obviously, I'm not blonde hair, blue eyed, and trying to keep up with the Joneses, kind of deal. But we help each other a lot in the neighborhood, which is something I love, is that our neighbors actually know each other. We help each other. And so I was helping him move, saw a bunch of dead heads on the wall, so a bunch of Euro mounts and stuff. And asked him, I said, "Oh, so you're into hunting?" And he said, "Oh yeah. I love hunting. I'm actually, I used to go out with my brothers a lot. They've all gotten busy with their own jobs. They're all CPAs and stuff. And so they're super busy. And of course, hunting season is usually when taxes are due. And so he's like, man, we really haven't been able to get out a lot. So he invited me to go. It was a rifle deer. He had a deer and an elk tag just up here in Utah. And, it started with cheap boots, jeans, Walmart camo. And he was like, he said, you don't even need to wear camo. Just come up with me, get a pair of binoculars. If you don't have any, I've got some cheap ones you can borrow. But if you can get some, go and get, I think I got like some $200 Vortex or something like that. And that was just learning to identify animals, where to look, what to look for. And all of that was just a blast. The first time we went up, and then it was, just about every weekend after that during the hunt season, he'd invite me up. We'd go hike a couple miles and, we'd find some animals, and he'd explain why he didn't want to go after certain ones, and just kind of grew from there.
One thing that I've discovered with people that are new to hunting is the hiking part can eliminate people from wanting to do that. Cause that was something, when I like to go spend time up in the mountains, like, I don't know. I mean, you're familiar with Centerville. You can probably see like the zigzag trail that goes up the mountain.
I was chasing a buck up there this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see any, but yeah, so I like to go up that zigzag trail and just, put a beating on my body, but that is one thing that when you get out, a lot of people want to hunt, but if they're not mentally prepared for the physical aspect of hiking up a mountain, it makes people not want to go back out again.
Mm-hmm.
They might like it, but especially out in this area, once you start getting up in the hills and you're a half mile trek up a mountain, people tend to not love that so much. But
yeah,
that's one of the things that kind of made me fall in love with hunting. I've mentioned this on my other shows. Like, I just started hunting 4 years ago, so I'm new to it myself, and I've fallen in love with it. To me, it's like I've said this before, but getting up in the mountains, like, I get why the prophets would always go to the mountains, right? You get a little bit of peace and quiet and that tranquility that just brings some, I don't know, peace that you get when you're not disconnected from, the cell phones and social media and all that stuff that's constantly going at us 24/7.
Exactly.
But, well, that's cool, man. So you came out here and saw those Euro mounts and got out there and fell in love with it. And so when you started, were you rifle hunting then? Like, once you started hunting yourself?
Yeah. So I started with rifle. That was I feel like it's a little bit of an easier barrier to entry to overcome. Archery, there's a lot of good setups out there that are on, I guess, I wouldn't say cheaper, because they're not cheap. They're built well, but on a more budget friendly experience. And so, there's a lot of good ones out there, but I wanted to get top of the line gear. That's just kind of, I've always been a gear nerd, no matter what sport or whatever it is I'm doing. And so I looked more at rifle because it's, $200, $300. You can get a Mossberg Patriot, which is what I got at the time. Well, maybe it was $400 or $500 for a Mossberg Patriot, a couple $100 for a mid-level Vortex scope. And then, after that, it was just some regular ammo. I mean, it really wasn't that expensive. I think after everything was said and done with tags, ammo, rifle, and scope, I was sub $1,000, right? Whereas with a bow nowadays, even an aluminum flagship bow is $1,200, just the bow.
Yeah.
And then you've got the rest, you've got the arrows, you've got this and that. So I just went with a standard 308 rifle, Mossberg Patriot, which is the equivalent of the Ruger American, which is another great one. I think nowadays they're like $600 or $700, but still very budget friendly and shoots well. You're not going to go shoot some crazy awesome long range match with it, but you can touch animals out to 400 or 500 yards and hit in the kill zone and get a good group out to that distance. So that's what I started with. The first year I didn't have a tag. I didn't put in for points or anything like that. I just went with them. The next year I put in and happened to draw a deer tag, and um, and I ended up filling that tag with a buck. He was a good buck. He was a little 2x3, good mass on him. It wasn't super wide, but he was a good first buck for mule deer. And I was like, okay, well, that's exciting. I filled my first tag, and I think the next year I got another tag, just happened to get the tag, and I went back out to rifle hunt and filled that tag as well. Again, nothing massive, nothing crazy, just filling my first 2 buck tags was like, all right, I'm 100%. I want a little bit more of a challenge. And at that point, I was starting to look into archery. But my grandpa actually had a muzzle loader that he had never used. He had won it, said he would never shoot it. Never. It's just basically a safe princess. And so he was like, do you want it? And I said, sure. I would never consider really muzzle loaders as something I want to do, but sure, why not? And so I ended up actually drawing a muzzleloader tag that year. And so I ended up filling my tag, another small buck, during the muzzleloader season that year. So I was 3 for 3 in my deer tag. So I was finally like, okay, I want to get into this archery thing. That was late 2019 when I started really digging into archery. And found a couple guys online that I really liked. And what I was looking for was, don't sell me on something, provide me some knowledge. I'm willing to pay for camps if I need to, but provide me some knowledge and let me know that, you're not just trying to sell me XYZ because you're being paid to. And there's a handful of guys out there. I'll give them a shout out. We got Dan Staten. Everyone knows, obviously, he shoots Matthews, etc. But he doesn't push you to Matthews. He's like, this is why I like the bow. I'm sponsored by them, but go to your local shop and shoot all the bows and find what's best for you. I appreciate people like that. And then John Dudley was another one, Knock on Archery. He provides a lot of good free knowledge. And then my local bow shop, Wild Arrow, is an amazing group of guys. I went in with some good questions, and they spent the time with me when it wasn't busy to sit down and walk me through arrow setups, bow setups, what I'm looking for, what my budget is, stuff like that. And then, of course, my buddy that was getting me into hunting. So all of those factors combined and brought me into this rabbit hole that has become my archery obsession at this point with hunting out west.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's kind of like a similar thing for us. Like, my boy and I, when we got started hunting together, we decided like, hey, we're going to do archery. And like, that's the only thing that I'm going to do until I take an animal with my bow. And so anyway,
that's a hard road.
Yeah, it's been 4 years. I've only been out 2 years trying to get anything. Just life gets in the way, but it's become something that we've been out. Like, we're going to try and go out one more time, see if we can't get him on an elk here this week before the deadline comes on his extended. And we've had some other buddies. We've been up in Farmington chasing a couple bucks around, trying to get on that. We had one nice little forky came up, but my buddy decided to pass on him. He's good size, but he's like, I want to get something bigger. And we found another big boy up there, but we've been yet to get within range. This guy we had at 35 yards.
Okay.
And he kept apologizing to me. He's like, I'm sorry I didn't shoot him. I'm like, dude, it's your tag.
Exactly.
Like, don't apologize to me. But Dustin's a good dude, and he's been somebody who's been really great about kind of taking me under his wing and showing me how to get on animals. So I'm feeling pretty confident about next year with having to. Like I said, I've had so much going on. I didn't even put in for a tag this year.
Oh man,
didn't even get like the OTC elk tag, none of that. But so I've been helping my buddies, and then my son. Like I said, we've been chasing some bulls around, trying to get him on an elk. But it's an interesting path, and definitely glutton for punishment. With putting all my eggs into the archery basket, at least for right now.
Well, but, and on that note, so just for people out there, like, honestly, your hunt is your hunt. I would say depends on how you portray it. Like if you're looking for clout on social media, obviously you're not going to be putting out there that you shot a forky. But what are your intentions behind it? So like for me, for example, this year, I set standards at the beginning of the year. You know, I've killed a small buck with my bow. I've killed a doe with my bow. I had the doe tag, which is my first actual archery kill with a bow. I guess archery is with a bow, but archery kill was a turkey during the fall season, which is crazy because it runs like all the way through February here in Utah. And so I had some permission on this property where you could literally set a timer and this row of hens would come across in front of you right at 8 o'clock on the dot every single freaking morning. And so I just kind of set up and, I had no blind or anything. I just set up there and waited for him to cross and tagged out on my first animal with a bow. And then that same year I drew a doe tag, same property, was able to kill a doe. And so again, I would say with archery, find as many opportunities as you can to get reps in the red zone. If you're familiar with football, you understand that reference, but you want to get those high pressure reps, not just shooting in your backyard or shooting on flat ground, at 20, 30 yards. Set a distance that you're comfortable shooting at and practice at that distance consistently with broadheads before season. And then when the time comes, you're ready as you can be. But I can almost guarantee you will never be on a flat spot. You're either side hill, you're either angled downhill, angled uphill, super steep. You've never gotten into your string like that. You're putting too much face pressure. There's so many things that go into it that I recommend people go out and practice all of the different scenarios. And if you don't know what scenarios to practice, reach out to people that have been hunting archery for a couple years, and they can run you through that to help you out with that, because you're going to be like, how did I miss low left? I know I'm good at 30 yards. How did I miss low left? Well, you weren't thinking about your bubble. You were shaking. You put too much face pressure into your string because you're excited because that doe or buck walked out in front of you. And you're side hill shooting, which you already feel uncomfortable doing, and you're not comfortable bubbling into the mountain, right? So all of those things are going to happen. Plus, who knows? Fog, wind, snow, rain, whatever. You're cold, you're shaking, and you're nervous because it's your first deer, whatever. There's so many factors that go into it that I'd recommend you reach out to someone who's been archery hunting for at least a couple of years and has had some experience, that they can teach you how to practice those scenarios so you don't get thrown off guard in your first opportunity.
It's interesting that you say that, because when you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, he's 100% right. I had my very first year, and I won't go into the story again because it's like my only elk hunting story that I have. But yeah, it was uphill, and he was going through brush oak, and he was at 30 yards, and never let it fly because he winded me and bolted before he stepped into the clearing. But I was shooting uphill, probably like a 30-degree incline. A decent one. This little forky that we saw last week, that would have been like the closest thing to having like your target set out and you're shooting on flat land. But again, it wasn't something that he was interested in having. But yeah, my boy, the elk that we've been chasing, it's been like all like downhill. And that is the one thing that, Wild Arrow, like I said, I told you, like I'm in Centerville, so that's my bow shop as well. Those guys told me down there, like, practice shooting like different angles, like shoot on your knee, shoot like hugging around a tree, like just try different things. And so I've always spent a lot of time just shooting at different angles, but I had never put the two and two together, that you're not going to have like a simple like broad shot when you're out there in the field. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's always they're either going to be quarter away, quarter to you, walking away hard. Like there's so many different things, and you need to know where to put the arrow on the animal for, you need to learn to aim for the exit, not necessarily the entrance. Because if they're quartered away and you aim for the entrance, well, you're going to end up, nailing that opposite side shoulder. You have to aim a little bit further back to get all the goodies, up there in the pump house. So there's a lot of things that you don't consider until you've either studied the anatomy of an animal or you've shot an animal and, kind of broken it apart. I also recommend people go on hunts with other people. Your first year, don't carry a weapon, don't get a tag, maybe put in for a point, and go on that same hunt with a buddy or someone that has that tag, and go and experience that hunt before you have a weapon in your hands, and you can go, just have the full experience minus punching the tag, which honestly, that I wouldn't say it's deflating is the wrong word, but like you realize it's over once you're on that animal. Like once you've sent an arrow through an animal, like this year, I had a couple of opportunities on some solid 3 points. But in that last week, so here in Utah, you have all the way through November in certain areas of the state that you can hunt deer, which I love getting to November and hunting deer in November. They're grouped up. The bucks are with the does. The bucks are stupid as all get out. And so it's a lot of fun. And anyway, I missed those opportunities that I'll go to, and I'll go into depth on an episode on my channel as to what happened during those. But the last week of the hunt, I just said, look, starting on Monday, I'm personally okay with killing a doe or a 3-point. I personally have shot enough small bucks. They don't get me excited. Now, if it gets you excited, awesome. But for me personally, I just said, look, I'm setting this standard, either a doe, which there's so many does up here. I'm great with that. I don't feel like I'm hurting the population, or a 3-point buck or better. And so for all the Eastern guys out there, 3 points on one side, and we don't count the brow tines. So, just kind of break that down there for you. I guess it'd be like a 3 on one side for you guys. So anyway, and I ended up shooting a doe on the Monday of Thanksgiving week. And once it was a great shot. It was 70 yards. She was kind of quartered away uphill. So I put it on the last rib. Arrow, broadhead, everything performed perfectly except for staying together. The broadhead broke off at the end there, so I only found the back 2/3 of the arrow. But outside of that, went completely past through. She died within 60 yards of where I shot her. It was a great opportunity. But again, I practiced at that distance consistently. I know my broadheads are flying good at that distance. I trusted me. There was no wind. There was no weather, any of that would blow me off course. And again, I was completely confident, and I, again, had set the standard for myself that I'm okay with shooting a doe. I wasn't disappointed in it. I wasn't just shooting a doe just to shoot a doe. Like, I had set that standard, had that conversation with myself essentially before going out on the hunt that morning, and then, closed the deal, made it happen. And I was very happy for I guess the hunt ending that way, because I had set that for myself.
Yeah. I think it's good to set expectations and like goals. For me, like I said, like when I was out trying to get my bull, I didn't care what he was. Like if
legal,
if he was a bull, he was within range, he was going down. Mm-hmm. But I think too many people oftentimes try, like you said, get caught up on wanting to get like the social cred, be able to post that. And I think it's wise what you said, that it's your hunt. Mm-hmm. Do what makes you feel good, and plan accordingly, and be prepared. One of the other things you had mentioned about, studying the anatomy is, I was up in Wyoming a couple weeks ago. We were up at Rebel Ranch, and he had a guy there that was harvesting one of his bull bison. And we thought for sure that because he had taken him with a bow, we thought for sure he had hit him in his heart like 3 times. And the hearts in bison are way higher than what you would expect. Because he got all 3 lung shots, and it took maybe 2 minutes, and he was down. But once we got him back and we started butchering him and getting him cut open, like once we got to the heart,
all of us were just in shock that we didn't have a heart shot. And their hearts are massive. That's the other thing too, is, you can think, you can study it, but like you said, it's best to get with somebody who knows what they're doing and can maybe help provide some guidance on where anatomy appears when you're looking on social versus in real life, because there's so many other things that come into to affect, like the nervousness, right? Like you're getting that pressure. You might think you're putting your pin right where the heart's supposed to be. And I mean, not that everything has to be a heart shot, but I mean, you've got your best shot at hitting, a bison heart, probably, if that's what you're aiming for. But it was surprisingly high. Surprisingly high. The heart was much higher than what I expected, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just know the anatomy of your animal that you're going after. You just like you need to know your gear well. You owe that to the animal that you're hunting. You owe it to them to know their anatomy. A whitetail is going to be slightly different than a mule deer. Is going to be different than an elk. It's going to be different than a moose and a bison. And then if you're into predator hunting, bear's anatomy is vastly different when you're hunting bear versus an elk. And then on top of that, pigs. If you're in the South and you're hunting wild hogs, they're different as well. And so it's good to know what you're going after, and to picture that anatomy as you're out there hunting. Because if you shoot a bear where you would like to shoot a whitetail, you're going to miss some of the vitals. And you're not going to get as good of a shot as you think, because a bear is more middle of the middle versus a whitetail is going to be a little bit more crammed in there than a mule deer, which is a little bit more spread out than and an elk has got huge vitals. So it just depends on what you're hunting. And I always recommend to people, try and avoid the shoulder blade. And I say that, and I ended up screwing that up this year and smacking a good 3-point. I had to have been right in the spine of that scapula, because it sounded like it hit a tree, and that deer mule kicked 3 feet in the air, no blood trail, no pass through. And he was rutting does 2 days later. So you got to know the anatomy, and then you need to study it. And then even then you're going to screw it up every once in a while. What do you do when you screw up? How do you learn from that? So you gotta take that into account as well, because that's just as important. So you don't end up quitting hunting because you screwed up, or because you had a mess up, or because all your idols on social media are only showing the good parts. That's another thing that I respect about people that I follow on social media is if I find that you're only showing the good stuff and you're not willing to talk about bad, I unfollow you, because I don't feel like that's a good representation of what hunting is. Because no matter how good you are, no matter how many animals you've killed, there's going to be something that ends up happening, whether that's a branch that ricochets your arrow, or you're having a bad day, you're feeling a little weak, you've got some tennis elbow because you've been hunting for so long. You've got, there's so many factors that go into it. If you don't talk about them, I feel like that's being unfair to people that are just getting into the sport, or have had a bad experience on their one tag they had this year, when you have maybe 6 or 7, and they're beating themselves up over it. I think that's a little unfair to those people.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I would just add to that too is, like, do it for you. I mean, and this applies to all aspects of life. If you're looking at guys that go to the gym or anything, like, most of the time, most people are only posting the good stuff. And it kind of gives like a false sense of reality, at least in my opinion. So no, I appreciate that. Hey, if there's any other on top of the anatomy and understanding your equipment, is there any other advice you'd give to somebody that's maybe hunting mule deer out for the first time? I mean, we've talked endlessly on here about like wind thermals and stuff like that. And in Utah, it just seems like expect the wind thermals just to like whirl on you. But is there anything else that maybe comes to mind for you that you would maybe want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it depends on where you're hunting, because there's a lot of. First off, I'd go with, and I'm supported by a camo company. We're partnered up with Cryptech, but I'm pushing them for solids because I'm a firm believer that camo isn't always the most important thing. I think it's very important for whitetail season, very important for whitetails, but I like to be able to, if someone's going to spend $200 on a pair of pants or whatever, I think you should be able to take it out on a date and go up in the mountain with it. That's a lot of money to be spending on something that you use maybe a week out of the year. And if you're lucky, you have a couple hunts, maybe a month out of the year. But anyway, camo is not the most important. It's the material, and you don't want to wear cotton. I'm not a firm believer of full synthetic or full merino. I like a good blend on base layers. And depending on the season, make sure you've got a couple of layering ideas out there. That's what I'd recommend for mule deer gear wise anyway, outside of your arrow setup, your bow setup, or your rifle setup. Making sure you have the right equipment so you're not miserable while you're out there glassing your eyeballs off, trying to find deer and or elk. If you have gear questions, always feel free to reach out to me. I will talk your ear off on gear all day, and not trying to sell you anything. Just, this is what I use. This is what I found. This is what I've heard that works from other people as well. There you go. With hunting the front here in Utah, if you're here in Utah, at least I would say having at least one, if not two other people that are willing to go out there with you and spot for you. That's a game changer here on the front. If you can have someone that is dedicated to looking in the glass and walking you in on that animal, it's almost impossible to hunt the front here in Utah without a spotter, because when you take even if you take a picture of the area that buck or that whatever animal is in, you get up there, it looks completely different thanks to the scrub oak and all the other crap you got to deal with here. So if you can find a good hunting buddy, which some people say that's harder to find than a good spouse, but if you can find a good hunting buddy or two that aren't necessarily in it for themselves and want to help you out and you help them out, vice versa during their tags, I think that is key to longevity in hunting. It's very rare to find people that enjoy solo hunting all the time. So I would say that just find someone that, whether it's your mentor, if you're new into hunting, to, your own group of friends and being willing to teach them and walk them through, things to be able to be there with you for your tags and you there for them during their tags. I think that is vital, is to find a good hunting partner or two.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I've learned more this past month going up with my buddies Dustin and Quinn, being able to get on mule deer than I have all the time I've gone out by myself. I mean, I've read a ton of books and that, and read the magazines, and reading it and being able to apply it like in real life scenarios are two entirely different things. So I think that's great advice. And then the other thing I would just say is if you've got buddies that aren't willing to go out hunting with you, it might be time to find new friends. So
yeah. Or, honestly, another thing too with that is simply maybe you have your hunting buddies and then you've got your friends that you hang out with on a regular basis, Yeah. There's different. I've noticed that too, that I've got some friends that I don't really talk to a lot throughout the year. Hunting season rolls around, I know they're going to be there, and we talk to each other when we're applying for tags, when we get drawn, and then of course when we're making a plan for the season. That's kind of where I've got some of my friends at.
That's no, and I say that tongue in cheek, but no, I think that's good advice. It's always good to have different types of friends and associates to make your life more whole, right?
Oh yeah.
But hey, I want to maybe shift gears just a little bit here, and one of the things that I keep getting a lot of questions about is how to get youth into hunting. I know you've been able to get out with your son. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, for sure. So one of my favorite things about this year was that last year, at the end of the year, or the beginning of this year, the youth in our ward, which is a the LDS term for congregation. The youth had to pick an activity that they were going to do for a longer period of time than normal, not just dodgeball one night, etc., but something that a life skill that they were going to go through for a couple of weeks, learn about, and go to classes with a group of the youth, and go through to the end. And so I guess, and my son didn't tell me this, but he chose hunter safety. Now he's our middle child. We've got 2 older children. We've got our middle child, and then we have 2 younger. And the older 2, they haven't really shown interest. Like, they'll eat game meat, but they're not really interested in hunting, which I'm cool with, whatever. And then Brody honestly was the least likely, in my opinion, to be interested. He is the typical data nerd. So he builds computers. He knows more about computers and programming and all that crap. And he doesn't just play video games. He actually rarely plays video games unless he's testing out a final product that he's built. And it's really interesting. He doesn't play Minecraft to play Minecraft. He goes in and like makes these different programs that I'm like, dude, why don't you sell those for like $1 a piece? Like, how many people have asked you for those hacks or whatever it's called? And he's like, and he shows me, it's like a couple thousand. I'm like, dude, like, what kid doesn't have 99 cents that they'd be willing to Venmo you or whatever? Like, that kind of deal. So anyway, he builds games to the point where, I guess Utah has a statewide competition. I think it's Ken Garf puts it on, hosts it or whatever. But a statewide competition of games that have been built by students in high school, and they won the state for their video game. So anyway,
That's awesome.
He is that kind of kid. And so I never thought that he would be interested in hunting. And he came to me in, I want to say it was February, and kind of the teenager snarky, like, hey Dad, I just got this in the mail. Will you hold on to it for me? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I've got the fireproof box that we keep important documents in one spot. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And he hands it to me. I was like, when did you do your hunter safety? Like, what? And he was like, yeah, that's the activity that I chose over the last 2 months. And we just got our cards today in the mail. And I was like, awesome.
He went and got his shooting done without you knowing it?
Yeah. Like, they took him as youth to the Lee K range
awesome.
out here. Yeah, I know. And I'm like, okay.
He's
sweet.
like, he's all low key about it with Dad.
Yeah. He's like, hey, hold on to this card. Yeah. I'm like, what? And so I was like, do you want me to put you in? Because draw's coming up here in about a month or so. And he was like, yeah. I said, okay, well, when the draw comes around, I'll tell you what options you have, and here's your lifetime points that you'll be putting in for. You have to choose an animal to put in for. So we'll go over all that. And he was like, okay. So the draw comes around, and I put him in for the things that he asked for, and he ended up drawing a mule deer tag, which as a youth in Utah, you can hunt the unit that you draw out for every single season in that unit with the appropriate weapon. So he literally had from the middle of August all the way through the end of November to hunt mule deer in this area. And so, archery, then early rifle, muzzleloader, late rifle, and then late season archery. He got the over-the-counter elk tag, and then he drew a late season rifle cow elk tag, which we'll do either the end of December, beginning of January, whatever the weather dictates. But anyway, so he's been putting in the miles. He went out for elk a little bit with me, not a ton. He put in a lot of miles for mule deer. Anyway, going back to your question, how to get youth into it. I think it depends on if it's your child or if it's another youth that maybe is approaching you at the bow shop or something. Maybe their dad's reaching out to you because their dad's like, he wants to get into it. I don't know anything about it. There's different scenarios, but I'll start with if it's your own kid. First and foremost, don't force them into it. That's never a fun scenario. I had a podcast with Bert Soren, where he talked about how his older son was almost opposed to going out and hunting. And then he found out through, if you want to hear that story, go listen to that podcast. It was a great one about being a parent. But he basically found out that it was because for deer season, he's waking his son up, who already doesn't want to get up early, waking him up early in the cold, not really yelling, but as a dad, like sometimes you yell or get a little stern and you can get a little scary to your kids. So he's basically getting scary towards his son, putting pressure on him because his son doesn't know where one of his boots is or where one of his pairs of pants are. Like, the stuff that you get stressed about when you're trying to make it to the stand because you literally have a time period that you need to be there, and putting that pressure on a kid.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being a little kid and my dad was trying to hang a shelf in the garage, a cabinet in the garage. And he's like, "Is it that hard for you to hold that?" And I'm like 9. Yeah. And I'm like, "Yes, it is that hard for me to hold that up." And that's the one thing that I've tried to do. And I mean, I failed, but just to be like realistic with the things that you're asking of your kids. But anyway, so he's putting the pressure, getting the boots, getting the tree stand, all that stuff.
So he realized after his younger son was excited about going duck hunting, which I'm not big into waterfowl, but from what I understand about it, it's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of downtime, being able to hang out with your buddies kind of deal while you're in the duck blind or whatever it is. Hot chocolate, snacks. You don't have to be quiet. You don't necessarily have to be there early. All of that. And so his younger son was really excited about going duck hunting, and his older son brought up that he was interested in going. And that's when it kind of clicked for him that, oh, I'm the problem. I've put all this undue stress and pressure on my older son that I shouldn't. And so what if we don't make it out to the stand at 5:50 in the morning? Like if getting mad at my son for being loud and stuff, like, so what? I want them to enjoy this with me. I need to lower my standards a little bit, teach them the importance of those things, but lower my standards as far as stress goes. And I may not get a buck this time out because I'm bringing my son, but I gained the opportunity to be with my son in a tree stand, teaching him, enjoying the things that I enjoy about hunting. And so all of that to be said, the way I treated my son was, you have these tags, here are your dates, which ones are your priority, and what are you willing to do? And so we just kind of broke down of like, I'm able to borrow some e-bikes from this buddy. We can hit these areas during that time frame. I got him good gear. That's the other thing. Like, don't send your kids out there with all cotton gear when you've got the nicest gear possible. Like, that's another investment. Make sure they're warm, make sure they're not sweating their balls off if they're out in the heat with you. Like, give them good gear to be comfortable as well. Don't give them tennis shoes, get them some nice boots, so they're not hurting their feet while they're out there walking. All of that stuff. So it is a money investment as well as a time investment. And so all of those things, I would say made it so that my son wanted to spend, he put in so many miles and had so many experiences this season so far for mule deer that I was really excited about it, for him. So I would just say that just don't stress about filling the tag per se. Enjoy spending that time with your kid if it is your kid, and make sure that they have the best opportunities with what you're provided, whether that's gear or time frame or whatever. But make it fun, as fun as it can be.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. My son is the one that got me into hunting in the first place. He got his hunter safety before I did. He's the one that, convinced me to put our tag. He goes, "Let's put in for our tag." And he's like, I'm like, "I don't know, Jack. I didn't grow up hunting. We didn't do it." But he's like, "Let's just we'll put in for the same unit. If we draw," he's like, "you can go down and get a bow." And sure enough, like the first time we draw out for the same unit, And so then I go down to Wild Arrow down there, and Jeremiah's like, okay, let's get you set up. And like you said, it's not like a cheap thing to go get started in. I'm thinking I'm going to go down, spend like $700-800 and then like $2,000 later, I'm like ready to go out. But it is, when you think about it, to your point, like get them the stuff that's going to make it enjoyable for them. It's the thing that makes it enjoyable for you. Like I grew up coaching comp baseball, right?
Yep.
Like we always had like the new gloves, and we had to get the new bats and the batting gloves and the cleats. And if you look at it, especially if it's your own kid, I mean, it's an investment in time to make it enjoyable for them. And my boy, who, like I said, he's 24, he was 20 when we started hunting. I found myself like, whenever I buy me something, I just order one for him now. And it's nice. I'm in a good situation where I can be able to get some of that stuff, and he buys his own stuff as well. But yeah, you start looking for the deals and that when things go on sale, and it's like, I'll get one for me, one for him. And it makes it enjoyable. I've got 2 girls, and they want nothing to do with hunting, but it's fun that my son loves it. And he's helping with the podcast, and we're doing some other stuff. We've got some t-shirts and hats. Like this is one of our hats we designed, and it's just fun. It's a way for he and I to be able to spend more time together, as adults, and see him progress. But you just develop this relationship with your kids just by spending time with them. Like I said, we've gone out and we haven't gotten anything, but every time we've been out hunting together, there's always something that happened that is just, it's a great memory that we're able to look back on. It's the same, similar as when we're doing like baseball or basketball. It's like, hey, do you remember that game when this happened? And yeah, there's a million different things that happen. So I think that's great advice, just to know they're going to make mistakes, know they're going to spook some animals, and you're going to miss. But man, I can't think of a better way to spend time with your kids than being out in the wilderness. I've got a granddaughter who's 2, and I keep telling my wife, I'm like, it's going to be so fun to take her out archery hunting. And my wife's like, you are not taking her out. I'm like, we're going to let her decide for herself if she wants to go out with Pop or not. But
Exactly.
that's good stuff. So were you and your boy were able to get anything this year? Your son?
So I got for him, he was within 40 yards I want to say 6 times on mule deer between bucks and does. One time I'm sitting there glassing again. I'm walking him in. He's 20 yards from a buck and he can't see him. That's how thick this stuff was. I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, Brody, seriously, like if you draw your bow back and point that direction, like I'm not telling you to shoot, but like you're literally pointed at him. Like, and so, it was situations like that. And he had 2 shots that he missed. And one of them was, I was sitting there watching it, the arrow ricocheted off the branch. Of course, again, that's something that you're not thinking about, the arc of the arrow, when you're looking at a deer that's looking at you and you're like, yes, I've got a 37-yard shot. I can take that shot. You're not thinking of that branch that's going to knock your arrow off course. And so, each time, like I'm super excited about it. I think the only time I showed a little frustration was when that buck literally stared him down from 120 yards all the way down to 20. I don't know why that buck didn't run, but like I'm sitting there, I'm finally like, Brody, are you kidding me? Like this is the only time that I showed any kind of frustration with him during the hunt. I was like, are you kidding me? Like you will step on him in 5 steps. Like you are right there. What do you mean you don't see him?
Was this the one that he couldn't see him?
Yeah. And so I'm like, what is going on? And anyway, outside of that, like even there were other times too where I'm like, they're right in front of you. How don't you see them? And he's like, I just can't. And it was just scrub oak. But
is he colorblind?
No, he does have bad vision, but it's not.
Because I'm colorblind.
Yeah.
And if I don't see, if obviously something's 20 yards from me, like I'm going to be able to notice it. But I have noticed, like when I'm glassing, I have to pay very close attention to movement.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just looking like I'm like reds and greens, and everything just looks brown.
Yeah.
So especially like in the fall, like I'm going, am I? So it's nice, like you said, to have some buddies out there. I'm like, look right here. Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm seeing something, but I can't tell. But anyway, that was my only thought, is because I do,
Yeah.
because people are like, it's right there, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
okay, if you say so.
yeah, it was interesting. He took a picture, I had him go back and take a picture of where he was standing, and there were a couple of branches obscuring his view, but it wasn't enough. Like, if he knew what he was looking, and that's where it goes back to reps in the field of, you need to get out there in glass and see what you are looking for, because there are some unsaid things that you're looking for with deer and elk. And it's funny because as the season goes further in, you notice you're spotting more animals. And I don't, it's not always that you're getting into the right spot. It's that now you're noticing things that your eyes didn't notice before. It's like the red car syndrome, or whatever they call it. If I tell you right now, to look for red cars, now when you go out, like, you're going to go and see all the red cars that they were there. You just didn't see them before because your brain tuned them out. Just like Jeeps, you start driving a Jeep and all of a sudden everyone else you notice is driving a Jeep. It's like, whoa, holy crap, who all bought all these Jeeps? And it's like, no, they've always been there. You just are now noticing them. And so it's similar with, mule deer, elk, whatever animal that you're out glassing for. Once you've laid eyes on a couple of them, then you're like, oh, well, there's another bedded one I didn't see. She's right there. Or, and so you start picking up on those things. So again, repetition out there, knowing what to look for, the ear flicks, the white butts, the slightly off colored gray, brown in a mule deer, or even before you see a rack, the difference between a cow and a bull elk because of the color of the tan, on their hide. And that's just, again, repetition. So, that's for me. We're taking a little break now, and like, here's the other thing. We'll go back into this. Brody had a date that he wanted to go on Saturday night, and Saturday night was the last night of the hunt. And so we went up Saturday morning. He had an opportunity, missed that opportunity. And we went back, and I just said to him, like, look, one of our buddies is going up tonight. We know this one spot is really, like, we've patterned 3 groups of deer that are always in the same spot every single night. This in the evening, like, that's not a morning spot, it's an evening spot. I said, I could all but guarantee you kill a deer tonight, because I will put you in the one spot. You know what I'm talking about. We just got to get up there. And he chose to go on this date. You know what? I could have been pissed. I could have said no. I could have made him go. But 1, it's not my tag. 2, we're not hurting for meat. And 3, again, he's had more experiences in his first year hunting mule deer alone that most people don't have in their first 1 to 2 years of hunting. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Sure enough, my buddy went up to that spot that night, and he's killed enough big deer that he was just going up to see if there was anything big that popped out. And he sent me videos from his phone, not zoomed in, nothing. He was surrounded by deer on all sides. Wow. And I, my son will probably never listen to this, but I wanted to send that video over to him. And I said, you know what? No, he's put in the time, he's put in the effort. There's nothing that could change if I send him that video. It's not worth it. Like, just let it go. Because for me, I'm like, I still have an evening. I'm going. Like, if my wife's cool with it, I'm up there.
Right.
But for him, he felt fulfilled with that tag. So you just kind of have to let that go.
Yeah. I think it's important to let kids be kids also. And kind of, like you said, like, let them get into it at their own pace. I mean, he got out there, he put in the work, he had his opportunities. I would show it to him now. Be like, hey, I didn't want to ruin your Saturday night, but this is what went up there, and it may light a fire for him to want to get back up there, maybe put in that extra effort next time. But also, like, I get, how old you say he is? 15,
He's 17.
15, 17. Oh yeah, 17. Yeah. He's out chasing his own does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's actually, and this was the thing too, was I was like, how much do I push him and how much do I not push him? Cause he's next year, he'll be on his mission. Cause he'll have graduated. He'll be out on his mission when hunting season rolls around next year. So, it'll be 3 years. So that, well, I guess 2 years before he'll be able to get back out there if he even chooses to when he gets back. I hope he does, but he's got his own life to live and everything. And so, and like I said, he has the late season elk tag. That's a hard hunt. Again, he's already put so many miles in. I'm like, we'll take a break until I get back from whitetail. And then we'll see what the weather's like and we'll get him out there for his cow rifle tag. Should be, I don't want to say easy, but it's going to be a lot easier than archery. So,
yeah.
So we've got a rifle dialed in. We need to slap the custom dial that we just got from Leupold. We need to slap that on there and go, make sure he's sighted in now. And then, and we'll go out late December, early January for that cow tag.
That's awesome. Jonathan, hey man, I really appreciate your time. Just as we wrap up here, is there any last bit of wisdom maybe you'd like to share with our audience here?
Man, there's so many things I'd love to leave. From the perspective of, I guess, of an adult to yourself, just like my shirt says, no excuses. There are no excuses. My wife points this out very frequently to me. She's like, I know you don't want to do something because you haven't done it. I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, you said you were going to kill a bull this year. You went out and killed a bull. Even the years that you haven't killed something, you have put every single drop, and the only limit that you've had is time. You have left everything on the table. She's like, when you have, something with your podcast, you go and you do it, you attack it. She said, but sometimes house jobs, I can tell you don't want to do it because you haven't gone and done it. So, and it's very true. Not everyone's as driven as everyone else, and that's understandable. You have different levels of that, but whatever it is that you want to do, as we're coming up to the end of the year here, you've spent another year of your life. What did you do in this last year? And what are you going to do in 2025 that is different? What are you going to do to progress? As I'm 32 now, and I'm like, man, I remember thinking my uncle was old when he was 30, right? And I feel like I'm just getting started. And then I look around me and I'm like, man, there's people in their 50s and 60s that are barely able to walk from their car to the pew at church. I don't want to be that way. Not judging those people, but I don't want to be that. I want to be 50 and 60 and chasing elk and deer. And then you look at people out there in the industry that are still chasing elk at 70 years old. I had a buddy text me. There's a dude that's been hunting whitetail for 75 years. He's 87 years old and killed a buck with a crossbow. That's freaking amazing. Like, I want to be that guy. I want to be almost 90 still killing deer. And if I'm not able to go hike a mountain, I want to be able to get out to a tree stand and still outshoot my little grandson. Like, I want to do that. And so don't give yourself any excuses. Whatever your goals are, be honest with what your goals are, financial, physical, whatever, and realize that time isn't going to stop for you. You're the only limit to what you can accomplish. Don't make excuses to whatever your goals are and get after them. As we, again, wrap up 2024, head into 2025, think of all the time that you might have wasted. You can't get it back, but what are you going to do to change next time that situation rolls around so you don't waste that time in the future?
Appreciate it. Great words, Jonathan. I'm with you. I'm hoping that I'm still out chasing animals when I'm 50, 60, and I'm getting a late start on this hunting thing. I'm 45 now. And getting up there in the hills, man, it grinds on the joints and the legs. And I will say, like, I've seen like a change happen in my body, being able to go out there and push. I might not go super fast, but I can go constant without having to stop. And that's kind of been my little, notch in my hat that I put in there. But I really appreciate it. And just to echo what you said, I love this shirt, No Excuses. One of my favorite quotes is, don't make excuses, find solutions. So whatever it is that folks have out there that they're chasing, either for the rest of 2024 to finish strong, or to make 2025 just a killer year for you, go out there, don't make excuses, find solutions, and get it done.
I love it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I want to thank you for sticking around and watching the podcast. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave us a review, and we'd love for you to share it with your friends. Also want to tell you about Hunt Stealth. We are giving away a pheasant hunt guided experience. It's at the Pleasant Valley Hunting Preserve. Some of the world's best wired hair German pointers are going to be out there helping guide you on your pheasant hunt. You're also going to get a 1-year membership to the club, as well as Cata Sports is providing a 1-person hammock. We've got 2 tripod stools, a Northward Series backpacking tent for 1 person, a Horizon folding cot, and a 60-quart ice vault that's got on wheels. So it's super, super cool package. Also, ReadyWise, our good friends over there, are giving us 3 3-day adventure bag meal kits for you to take out for you to use on your next adventure. So head on over to huntstealth.com, and for every $1 spent, you get 1 entry into that contest. Again, thanks for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time.